Was there ever a time where someone said that you were super nice, where they couldn't picture you being mean ever in your life? They can't even picture you raising your voice one bit. I know I have, and it's something that I've heard almost my entire life. Oh my God, you're just such a nice guy. You're like one of the nicest guys I've ever met. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with being a nice guy. It's nice to have people acknowledge some qualities that you helped bring up yourself or that they were taught to you by your parents. There comes a time where being nice might hinder our ability to grow in life, and that's what I wanted to talk about. So I recently read this book. It's called No More Mr. Nice Guy, A Proven Plan to Get What You Want in Life, Sex, and Work. And when I read it, I was dumbfounded. I was shocked at a lot of the things that I found in this book related to me and my life. Now, if you guys never read this book, it's a really great book. The book goes over exactly what a nice guy is and how a nice guy gets in his own way from getting in front of his own happiness in life and in relationships and in work. Nice guys, a lot of the time, get in the way of their own success because they're afraid of confrontation. They're afraid of stepping on the wrong toes. They're afraid of voicing their opinion. When I read that book, I couldn't help but to think of a certain point in my life, and not just a certain point, certain points, a lot of times in my life where that was me. I didn't want to speak up. I didn't want to voice my opinion, and I didn't want to have confrontation because I just felt like if I did it, it would only make things more awkward and worse. Until I realized at a certain point that that is not the best case scenario. One of the biggest takeaways I found from the book goes over how nice guys don't like confrontation when it comes to relationships and friendships because they want to avoid confrontation at all costs. They don't want to get people mad at them. They don't want to make things awkward. Now, when I read that, I could only go back to one point in my life where I felt like that was the epitome of myself. Now, my first ever real relationship, I didn't really know how to conduct it in a way because it was my first time where I felt like I needed to do things right. I was never in a serious relationship before that, and I felt like if I did things that made things awkward or worse, then there was a chance that I would ruin the relationship or I would be seen as a mean person. Now, don't get me wrong. I think it's a great thing to be nice. I think you should treat people with respect. I think you should treat people with kindness. And that's something that I live by all the time. But there's a point where you can't let people dictate what is best for you or to the point where you don't get treated fairly. So back to the relationship. When I was in the relationship, there would be times where I just didn't want to voice my opinion because I felt like if I did, we would get into a confrontation, we would get into a fight, and then it would worsen the situation. So a lot of the times when we would get into a fight or there was something that I disagreed with, I wouldn't say anything because in my head, I thought, you know what, it's okay, whatever. I don't want to have any confrontation. I want to get this over with, and even though it bothers me, I'm just gonna let it slide and, keep moving forward. Even though that was really bad because after a while, even though you want to move past it, that's still going to always bother you, and you might bring it up later in a bigger argument, and then it's all just going to unload on your partner, and all this baggage of like months and months and months of things that you wanted to say come out, and then the person who you're with is going to be like, well, you never said anything. How am I supposed to know? And exactly, how are they supposed to know if you never state your opinion, if you never tell them how you feel? And it's exactly how I think a lot of people go about things. They never want to say how they truly feel. They always tend to say things to other people, and they always just tend to be quiet and shy and not really say anything. To give you guys another example, I recently was let go from a job. I was a sales assistant at Bisco, and I was hired as a temp worker, but I was let go after 2 days because one of the recruiters said that I was a distraction and that I wasn't fit for the company. Now, when I heard that, I called the recruiter and I said, hey, I heard that you said that I was a distraction, and I would like to know right now, why do you feel like I was a distraction? I don't know what I did to make you feel that way, and I would really like some feedback as to why you think that I was a distraction. Give me a call back at this number, blah, 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 blah. And there was a point in my life where I would never have done that. I would have avoided confrontation because I just didn't want to have any confrontation or make things weird and make things awkward. So what ended up happening? That lady that I called another recruiter who got me the job and said, hey, he called me and made things really awkward. I felt really uncomfortable and I thought you were supposed to handle that. Now, I'm sure that lady never thought that I was going to call her because she thought that, the recruiter would take care of everything and that I would just, take it and move on with my life. But there was something about what she said about how I was a distraction, and she didn't really give any context as to why she felt that way. So I felt it was in my best interest, and something that I should do is to get an answer and try to improve upon it, because I wasn't an asshole to her. I wasn't mean. I didn't come off as aggressive. I just wanted to know why you felt those things about me. And it's a perfectly reasonable thing to ask. And by her response, by saying that she felt uncomfortable and it was weird, she has never been in many confrontational situations, which a lot of people tend to do. They don't want to do things that get them out of their comfort zone. They don't want to state what's bothering them. They stay passive aggressive. They try to avoid conflicts, when in reality, sometimes we need conflicts to resolve our issues and then move forward. That's what is something that's actually really good for yourself and the person that's bothering you or whatever's bothering you. Now, I am going to give you guys another perfect example of when I was basically being a nice guy and not wanting to say anything because I didn't want any confrontation, or I just didn't want to make a scene. I was working at a movie theater and I was at the podium. I was the guy who was ripping tickets that day, and I had a coworker. He came up to me and he started squeezing my ass, you know, like as a joke, but I still didn't like it. And he just came and grabbed it and was squeezing it and was just making jokes. Even though I knew it was a joke, I still laughed, but inside I felt uncomfortable and I didn't want him doing that. And he did that like 2 to 3 more times as he walked by. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that, where you were at work, where you were at someplace and someone did something that was really annoying or something that was, you know, nauseating, and you just kind of went along with it. You gave a smile, you gave an uncomfortable laugh, and you kind of just hoped that they would stop. You didn't really say, hey, that is annoying, stop it, because you just didn't want to make a scene, or you just didn't want to have any confrontation. And what happened with that person, I ended up telling someone else, and I told them, hey, like, that's really making me uncomfortable, I don't really know what to say. So she took it upon herself and she went and told him, like, hey, you can't just be grabbing people's asses like that without their consent, okay? And right after that, he comes later in that day and says, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't know that you didn't like it, I'm sorry, it was just a joke. And I said, you know, it's cool. Even I said it was cool, even though it wasn't. I should have just said, yeah, like, I didn't appreciate that, even though I know it was a joke. Just, you know, I don't like being touched that way. And it just goes to show how there's a lot of people out there who just don't really want to state their opinion because they're really afraid of just confrontation. They're afraid of causing a scene. And that's still me to a certain extent, because there are things where I feel like it's not worth it to state your opinion. If someone's slacking off at work, I'm not gonna cause a scene in front of everyone and just tell them to get their shit together. I might just pull them aside and say, hey, I don't appreciate how your work ethic is, and I think you should improve upon that. I'm sure if you're watching this video, you can relate to some of the examples I gave. Not wanting to say anything when you wanted to, not standing up for yourself when you should have, and not stating an opinion that you really wanted to but just didn't because you didn't want to cause a scene or a confrontation. But I'm here to tell you that it's not good to be nice all the time and not try to offend someone's feelings. Sometimes you have to tell someone how you feel and get your point across, because at the end of the day, if you keep trying to be nice to everyone, you're not going to please yourself. And that was me at a certain point. There was a point where I really wanted to please a lot of people. I wanted to please my friends, I wanted to please my girlfriend, I wanted to please everyone. I couldn't stand the sight of someone being mad at me, but at the end of the day, you have to think, there's always going to be people who dislike you, there's always going to be people who are not going to give you the respect you deserve. So at the end of the day, you just have to say, okay, you don't like me, who cares? There's some people who do, and there's some people who don't. And you have to care about the people who do like you and not give a shit about someone who doesn't like you. So what are some things you could start doing to stop being a nice guy? Well, 1, state your opinion. 2, don't be afraid of confrontation. 3, start being more assertive. 4, learn to say no sometimes, because there are times where we like to say no to a lot of things that we don't really want to do, and it causes us to do things that we don't really want to do, and then it takes time out of our day, and then we kind of regret doing that later. It's okay to say no sometimes. It's okay to just want to do yourself and not please other people, because at times there will be some people who take advantage of you all the time if they know that you're going to say yes. Because I have seen it firsthand where people say, oh cool, I'm glad she's a manager today, she always says yes to me, she never says no, she's such a pushover. And that's how people start seeing you. They see you as a pushover if you say yes all the time. You got to put your foot down here and there, and you can't let people walk all over you all the time, because if you do, it's just going to be a life of misery and never pleasing anyone, especially yourself. Alright, and that was the video. Don't be afraid to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys later. Bye.